All right, so if we're not going to do DEI in the government, and we're not supposed to talk about critical race theory in schools, and we're going to ignore these pieces of our history, then we're damn well going to do it at church, right? Woo! We're going to affirm Black history today and talk about some real history, okay? Not the whitewashed history that they want us to talk about. This is our little resistance today, okay? Amen? Okay, so I probably shouldn't be so self-congratulatory. I mean, did you know that it's the 100th anniversary of Black History Month this month? Well, that's pretty amazing, right? Yet, in the 9 years I've been here, I am proud to have preached on Black History Month one time, today. So this is something that we could have been doing a lot more of, I could have been doing a lot more of, and I have to hand it to Locke, our worship associate today, for asking if we were going to do Black History Month. Woo! All right, I was called out, or should I say called in. Thank you, Locke. Because as much as I believe that Black history is everyone's history, and as much as I've told myself that Black history shouldn't be confined to February, I think I failed in highlighting it as much as I could have. The only Black history that I seem to talk about with any kind of consistency or depth is MLK Jr. Day. Not that we don't discuss racial justice topics, but we talk about other kinds of history most often through a white lens that ignores Black contributions and experiences of members of our own Unitarian Universalist heritage and the wider culture. Or we don't talk about the Black history that's relevant to this congregation, this church. Now, to be fair, I've done some research on this and have struggled to find a lot that's really specific about Black members of this church. A lot of records of that time have been lost. There were no doubt Black members, but often when you find them, what you find most in the history are the names of the white people, even if the topic is Black history. We had a previous white minister, for example, who was known for performing marriages for enslaved Black people. Yet it's much easier to find the name of the minister than the name of the people who were married. You might get a name, a first name, but most of the story is lost. And this comes from the kind of bias that we have, not just in our country right now, but in how history was recorded. What history was recorded? It's a white supremacy bias of history. What stories are the stories that feel important to be telling, and who decides what stories are worth telling? And those people who record the stories, they are the ones that make the decisions. And so far as we talk about the history of Black folks and the Black contributions and experiences of our history, we often do have this white supremacy lens and bias to them. For example, the idea that slavery was ended because President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and that freed enslaved people. Right? Yet we know that it was because of so many other people, including many, many enslaved Black people who contributed to this effort. Right? It frames this history over the reality of someone like Frederick Douglass, who, in addition to Abraham Lincoln, has a birthday in February and is why Black History Month is this month. Our reading this morning comes from a book that I've been reading in part in preparation for this sermon, and it's called Black AF History, which is a fabulous name. At the very beginning, the author, Micah Harriot, writes, "That story of America is a fantastical, overwrought, and fictive tale. It's a fantasy where Christopher Columbus discovered a land that he never set foot in. It's a story of pilgrims and the Mayflower building a new nation. It's George Washington's cherry tree and Abraham Lincoln's log cabin. It's the story of slaves who spontaneously teleported themselves here with nothing but a strong back and a brain full of Negro spirituals. It's Betsy Ross's sewing kit and Paul Revere's horse and Thomas Jefferson's pen and Benjamin Franklin's eyeglasses and George Washington's teeth and liberty and justice for all. And it's a story predicated on lies." Michael Harriot talks about being raised in a Black household and how he was homeschooled. And his mother said, "We're going to learn history. We're going to learn real history the right way." So let's learn some history the right way. or at least the biased Reverend Otto way, that hopefully removes some of the white supremacy bias. Now, I've been thinking a lot about a particular aspect of Black history this month. You see, my children are of Haitian descent. One of the things I did when I knew I would be parenting them, at least for some time, was to read a bit of history, because I'm a history nerd. And so I read a bit about Haitian history. Now, Haiti has a fascinating history that's intertwined with the history of the United States. Haiti shares an island with the Dominican Republic on an island that is named Hispaniola. And it was on the part of that island that modern Haiti is, where Christopher Columbus first landed. Christopher Columbus, by the way, never landed on the United States. It's weird that we even have a holiday celebrating him, but moving on. This island was eventually colonized by the French, who named it Saint-Domingue. And because Christopher Columbus and those who followed him had killed the native Taino people on the island, those French people felt that they needed to import people to work the land. So they traded and bartered in people. And enslaved Africans were taken from across the ocean to work in Saint-Domingue. And Saint-Domingue became the most profitable of all of the French colonies. They were the #1 exporter of coffee, responsible for 60% of all the coffee consumed in Europe at the time. But it was also because of all of the work of the enslaved people there, which was estimated to be about 90% of the population in Haiti. And so the enslaved people did what I hope all of us would do, what we would all want to do in a similar situation. They said, this is enough. It was enough seeing their loved ones, their children getting taken away. It was enough dying before their time because they'd been worked too hard or were punished too hard. It was enough of the abuse, enough of the violence, enough of the sexual violence that was being perpetrated against them. It was enough. And so they revolted, led by Toussaint Louverture, and they gained their independence through the only successful revolt by enslaved people in history. With Jean-Jacques Dessalines declared its first ruler, and slavery was permanently abolished in 1804, the first place in the Western world. And the country was renamed Haiti, and I think this is a really interesting fact, the word that the native Taino people had used to describe their mountainous island. It's a moving story of a people getting back what is rightfully theirs, a country that their ancestors had built. But the United States, France, and the rest of the world have been making them pay for it ever since. You see, France forced Haiti to pay reparations, and it did so by military and economic threats. And it was a huge amount of money, and it took them almost 150 years to pay it off. And since Haiti was indebted to France, they would take out loans, often from American banks, meaning that by 1915, 80% of Haiti's revenue was being paid in the service of those loans. Can you imagine having to survive in those kind of economic conditions? When they made their last payment in 1947, it was being paid mostly to American banks. And they continue to have to pay off debts that they had to take out to support a country that had been so economically terrorized. The Americans were so afraid that this successful slave revolt would spread to the United States, and maybe they should have been. In fact, the largest slave revolt in US history happened just 5 years after the Haitian Revolution, in another former French colony of Louisiana, a place where many Haitians had escaped. But this fear of these revolts coming to the United States, caused the US to help isolate and cut Haiti off from the rest of the Western world. And so things in Haiti today are a result in part of this economic devastation that happened for 200 years, over 200 years in Haiti. Corruption has been high in the government, and currently there is extreme gang violence and control of the country. It's currently so dangerous to be in Haiti that there are advisories not to travel there, and even their soccer team that qualified for the World Cup this year doesn't practice or play home games there because it is too dangerous. But it's important to remember, right? Haiti is where it is today because France and the United States couldn't stand the idea that there was a free country run by Black people. Because of the dangers in Haiti, thousands of Haitians have left and come here, hoping for a safer place to live. You might remember about 2 years ago, there were people sleeping in Logan Airport due to a lack of housing in Massachusetts. Many of those people and families were Haitians who needed a safe place for them and their families, the same as we would do if we needed to keep our families safe. And they were able to stay here due to something called temporary protected status, a status that is granted to people when it would be unsafe for them to go back to their home country. And then, in the process of trying to get immigrants out of this country, the Trump administration has decided to revoke temporary protected status for Haitians. And they wanted to do it this past Tuesday, and it was thankfully stopped by the courts. Temporary protected status, or TPS, had already been ended for Haitians that were trying to come into the country, but they were trying to take it away from people who were here and had legally entered the country. Never mind that the United States is a large part of the reason that things are so rough right now in Haiti. Never mind that they've already stopped TPS for so many other countries, all of them majority non-white. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem says that there are still places that are safe in Haiti that they can go back to. But the UN calls it one of the most acute humanitarian crises of our time. And the little amount that we as a country could do to make things right by not sending back these 300,000 people who are living here is something our administration is fighting actively against. And this is part of the danger of not knowing this history. This is not some random country experiencing distress caused by themselves entirely, though we should obviously always provide aid. It's a place that United States and Europeans punished for succeeding in getting their people free. Meanwhile, Trump uses terms like "these countries are poisoning our blood," which reeks of white supremacy. So this past week, I was standing outside my house. I was just bringing some things to my car, and a man drove by my house and stopped his car. He rolled down his window and he yelled, "Seriously?" I realized that he was looking, he rolled the window down again and he yelled again very loud, "Seriously?" He stopped his car. I realized he was looking at my Protect Immigrants sign. He said, "Those people are just coming to this country to pad the voter rolls." We traded barbs for a few minutes, with him angrily yelling about how terrible immigrants are for this country and even asking me if I was born here, like him, who'd spent his whole life in this country. And I lied. Standing in front of the Canadian flag outside my house, and told him I was born in upstate New York. There are Canadians in my house, it's fine. When finally he asked me why they, the immigrants, would murder Laken Riley, which was a woman who was murdered by an undocumented immigrant 2 years ago. I asked him if every white man should be blamed for another white guy who kills people. He went quiet and he said, I'm not a racist." "Yes, you are," I said. I yelled back. The Supreme Court has literally ruled that it's okay to stop racism because somebody looks like an immigrant. That's literally racism. We talked a bit more, slightly less charged, about different things like the cold and the snow because I'm from upstate New York. And he drove off. I was shaken, grateful that my kids hadn't heard, wondering if I did the right thing by lying about the fact that I wasn't born in this country, knowing that as a white guy, I would have been safe even if I told him the truth. Wondering how safe it is to have a man like that in our neighborhood, who pulls over if he even so much as sees a sign of support for immigrants. I couldn't help but wonder, how would he have acted if I had been Black? There's no way I could have told him all the history in this moment. But what if he had learned it somewhere else? All of this is connected. Black immigrants and non-immigrants alike are being targeted because what if they're from Haiti or Somalia? Without any of the history of how these things happen and why we as a country should be welcoming those who need a safe home and not kicking them out because they don't look European enough, we are missing a huge piece of who we should be. And without knowing our history, we can't fully grasp why this is so important. This anti-Blackness that's a part of our history and continues to be a part of our present. But also so that we can be reminded of stories of resilience and triumph, despite all odds. Like the story of the Haitian Revolt, of the people who dreamed for a better life and made it happen for them and their families, and the people they inspired in this country to do that. These are the kind of stories that we need. So we need to learn these history stories because Black history is everyone's history. So let's tell more stories of it. May it be so. Let us say together, amen. Amen.